Hello, how are you doing, Mr. Mackey?
Meteorologist Scott Havens. This is meteorologist Michael Mackey. For those of you who were tuning in to see Erin, I'm not Erin, but I play her on TV today. She is on spring break. We should all be so lucky.
Yes, I got a great picture of her and Lily in the sand. And I think anytime you have sand beneath your toes, it is a good day, but not as good as Bank of Blue Valley and Burns McDonnell are having, as they are growing. And a lot of people are looking to work there. So we are happy that spring break, they do not take off. They are always there. But Mr. Mackey, what is the weather like where you are right now?
In lovely Fairway, it is bright blue skies and a little chilly, but I think it's it's March, so it's spring breakish, so we can handle that. Maybe I wish it was May.
I've been mixing up months though. Like right now, it's just like a weird time. Like I don't know if it's April, May, February. I guess it's March, but
it's March. And you want to know what next week is, young man? It's my birthday, so we need to start planning now. So
well, you got to go out big in your 20s, so you got to celebrate 29. Just to really get ready, because once you get
28, rude. I still have one more year in my 20s.
28. Well, once you get in your 30s, I hear you start sleeping on the couch. The next thing you know, your back hurts for a week or two, like I do.
And then it's AARP all the way, baby. So, yeah.
That's awesome. Well, I know everyone's not here to talk to us. They're here to listen to the panel. So I will trigger my inner Aaron Fulk and say, let us know where you're watching from. Are you on YouTube? Are you on Facebook? LinkedIn is our most popular audience. Like anything, once you say something, Sander will post it, and when he posts it, Michael will read it.
Hi, Paul Fogel, who I had lunch with earlier last week. Good to see you, my friend. All my fans are chiming in. So
no. I know. I feel like we got to give a little background. I guess we will for a quick 20 seconds. Pop culture, a little bit of your background before we introduce the guest. Why do people recognize your voice, and why do they recognize your face? And how long have you been in Kansas City?
Well, I've been in Kansas City for 100 years. I moved here in 2000, and I've worked at 3 separate TV stations. I'm also the fill-in host on Dana and Parks when either Dana and or Parks is gone. And then for a couple of years, I hosted Kansas City Live on NBC 41. So that was a good gig. So I'm sort of a Renaissance man when it comes to media. So
that's absolutely right. We had some more people.
Very famous in my own mind. So
you are famous, and people always recognize you. And
Greg Kane, the one and only. I see you, Greg. How are you?
So Greg and his wife Mindy introduced Michael and I, and which led to working with Aaron together as partners, which leads us to the music we're about to play for Michael to introduce the panel.
Hey, ladies and germs. First up, we've got Maria Maffry. She's a principal and chief business development officer at BNIM. Ladies first. Welcome, Maria. Up next, Mike Meyer. He's the manager at Meyer Music and also the chairman of the Band of Angels, a philanthropic organization here in the city. Up next, third, Brad Holliday. He's the director of human resources at SkillPath. And last but certainly not least, Ken Bramble et al. He's a benefits consultant at International. Welcome, team. Good to have you here today. We're going to go around the room. I want to hear all the things. Don't hold back. So we're going to start with the who, what, when, where, why. That's what I want to know. So Maria, first off the bat, who are you? And more importantly, how did you get to Kansas City?
So, as you introduced me, I am with BNIM Architects, and I am not an architect, but I play one on TV. Exactly. I'm the Chief Business Development Officer, and I've been with the company for 32 years. So, I was 3 years old when I started. Um, And I am a longtime Kansas City native. Moved here when I was 3 years old and called Kansas City my home. And I just can't leave because I love this place.
Do you have a favorite thing about Kansas City, Maria? Inquiring minds want to know.
I don't have one single thing that I love about Kansas City. I do love that it surprises people. I mean, we are, a great cultural attraction. We have sports. We're a great foodie location now, and I think people just don't know that. I love that it's a surprise to people who come to visit Kansas City and that they're always delighted by it.
Maria, tell no one. Scott and I are both foodies. What is your hidden gem restaurant that we need to try?
Hidden gem restaurant.
I'm putting you on the spot. This is not part of the interview questionnaire.
I don't know a hidden one. I feel like I go to all the places. Probably one of my favorites is Westside Local.
Always a crowd favorite.
Always a favorite. I had lunch at Extra Virgin today.
All the good spots.
All the good places. I recently went to Earl's Premium.
Earl's Premier.
Yes.
Oh, going there for my birthday next week.
It was so amazing. So yeah, we've got a lot of great places to eat here.
So Maria, you have some fans tuning in that may read, and then also the cashew back in the day was if I had to get a meeting with Maria Maffry, I had to go to the cashew. Yes. But in general, what are some of the organizations like the Women Who Mean Business that you've been involved in? You're incredibly well connected, maybe a top 150 person out of 3.8 million people in Kansas City that people know. So what are you involved in and what are some of your passions?
So organization-wise, I am on the KU Advancement Board. I'm the marketing chair for that committee. I'm on the Arts KC board, UMKC Block School, and the Enterprise Bank Board. Those are just a few that I'm currently active on. You're right, I am very active in the Women Who Mean Business. I know we have a great network. I know you know a lot of women who are in that organization and have had quite a few on here. And what am I passionate about? I'm really passionate about the arts. I'm also really passionate about higher education. I think it's so important to, really focus on the future generations. And so those are a couple of the organizations that I really like to focus on.
Very good. Let's thank you, Maria. Let's move on. Mike Meyer. Mike, as I mentioned, is the manager at Meyer Music and the chairman of the Band of Angels. I need to know all of the things. How did you get to Kansas City? How long have you been here? Everything go.
Well, I'm from here. I was born and raised in Blue Springs, Missouri, which is where Meyer Music started. I always laugh when I hear manager of Meyer Music because I've been that for 32 years.
You got to change it.
But it's a family business. I'm the second generation. We just started our 57th year on March 4th. So that's been pretty cool. I've been with it for 32 years. And mom and dad started in Blue Springs, which is a crazy entrepreneurial story. It's kind of like the Block story, which is really cool. So that's how I got into the business. Failed, I guess, at everything else in life, but realized I really loved working in the family stuff and the music, which is always really neat because you're around an amazing group of people. And then 13 years ago, I was approached by Fox Television here in Kansas City about starting a community project to help kids in the arts because they were doing a lot of stories about the arts being cut in schools. And so I kind of had this crazy idea that my family had sold a lot of stuff into the community that was probably in a closet or under a bed. And we had all the facilities to connect it. I knew all of the kids that needed it because we saw them in the stores every year that couldn't afford to do the rental of an instrument or buy something. And so like, gosh, we just connect those two things. What a great deal. So 13 years later, we thought if we did 50 instruments a year, we'd be doing big. We've given away over 3,100 instruments to schools and kids in 10 different states. Had 2.7 million in community impact, and it's just the coolest thing that's ever happened. So I'm loving it. So I have 2 hats.
It's awesome.
And another hat of feet. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say, what didn't you just have a big event, or do you have a big event coming up? Something at Rock On or something?
Yeah, we have 2 big events that we do. One's our Heartstrings Gala, which we just did, which was really successful. But we have this really cool event, which Scott's been a part of for many years, and Aaron too, and many others in the city, called Art That Blows. So it's a funny name, but the story is, as we started getting donations of instruments, I was getting all this stuff that we couldn't do anything with. And I thought, well, what can we do with it so it doesn't just sit or have to be discarded or recycled? So we decided, let's give it to local artists in the city, and they turn them into pieces of art, and it's a silent art auction. It's turned into the best party in the Crossroads. There was 1,000 people there last year at it. And we have this group of rock stars, which is Scott and Aaron were both, which is an amazing group of, younger Kansas City that are ambassadors for the event, and they're called our rock stars. So they help raise money for that. Last year raised over $100,000 and for arts and education. And so super cool. So yeah, you have to check it out. July 14th in the Crossroads at the Abbott. Very cool. You can wear shorts and a t-shirt, be like Scott, look super cool.
Mike, if you know me, you know that I would go to the opening of an envelope. All you need to do is invite me, so I'll be there.
All right.
Look at that. So, Mike, what is one thing that you're most excited about for this year's class of rock stars, and what's something that's unique about the event that people may not expect?
The thing that I'm the most excited about the rock stars is that I show who they are, and you can go on LinkedIn on the Band of Angels page and see this year's class, because they were just unveiled this last week. But I loved that you go to multiple people and they're like, I don't recognize half of these people. And I'm like, that's the best part, because you should. These are killer people in the city doing amazing things. And I love that we've been able to highlight so many people that aren't the normal people that you see on all the different things or at all the different networking events. And it's an amazing, diverse group of Kansas City. It's the most diverse group of Kansas City that I've seen. So that's the thing that I'm most excited about. I think then that leads into the event. Most people are shocked that we built the event around 25 to 40-year-olds, and we figured, hey, the 50-year-olds will show up if we do that well, and we did. But everybody comes in and they're like, I've not been in a room in Kansas City that has been that diverse and that cool, and just the vibe is it is all the faces of Kansas City. Everybody is welcome. Hallmark is an amazing big sponsor of it, so we get world-class artists, and you can come in there and see art from some just honestly masters down to people that just do it as families. We have several families participate creating art. So the stuff is very cool, as I'm sure you'd agree. I mean, you won't believe the things that people can make out of a trumpet or a clarinet. It's amazing.
Also, your rock stars are pretty competitive when it comes to trying to outdo one another to raise money. I kind of like that.
They are. I mean, it's funny. This year's class has named themselves the best class ever. We'll see if that holds up. If they last year's class raised, I think, around 75,000. So it was awesome. It was awesome. Yeah, Mitch Case, one of our former rock stars. He's an amazing guy.
Indeed. All right, Brad Holliday, you are up next. Again, like I mentioned, he's the Director of Human Resources at SkillPath. Brad, how long have you been in Kansas City? And more importantly, give me your backstory on how you got here and what you do.
Let's see. I moved back here in 2010. Came back here to join a startup, pretty fantastic organization that was Excelicare Health Solutions. Just a rocket ship of a ride. We were in the home infusion space in healthcare. We kind of had a plan to be around 7 or 8 years. We were around 5 years and just grew phenomenally. Started off with a handful of employees and one compounding pharmacy. And 5 years later, we had just shy of 2,000 employees around the country, 16 pharmacies, a number of ambulatory infusion suites, and we got snapped up by United Health, and turned around and rolled into another nonprofit after that, and eventually made my way here, which amazingly enough was a role that I had the opportunity to join back in 2008. But this time around, much better opportunity. Organization's got a much better leadership team. I won't say because I'm a part of it, but necessarily, but because it's just a great company, great leadership team, great opportunity.
So, Brad, as you look at the landscape, you are always working with people all throughout the country. What is the thing you like most about your organization and what you get to do for a living?
The thing that I like most.
It is intriguing that your organization is one of the few in Kansas City that actually works with all the Fortune 500 companies. So I think that's unique. Obviously, like diversity and inclusion with the Golden State Warriors or training for the FBI. I just didn't know if one in particular really spoke to you that you're like, wow, I'm really proud of my company because we work with this organization.
You know, Scott, great question, but I would say it's that diversity of all of those. I couldn't single out one particular client. You know, I would say, you know, you cited a couple of great examples. So the extreme from a professional sports team to the FBI. So, you know, I would say not buttoned up, you know, a professional sports team, to pretty buttoned up like the FBI, to a very large global organization, religious organization that has a large presence in Australia, New Zealand, the UK, that we were asked to design a very specific, think of it as a program that would be similar to a bachelor's degree program in any of our universities in the United States. Being asked to create that kind of a program specifically for the children of folks in that church. So that kind of diversity is just, to me, pretty amazing. And the trainers that we have that deliver that content ranges such a vast spectrum. So I think that's probably what I find the most pride in.
So do the dogs.
So do the dogs. The dogs agree.
Those are mine, and I apologize.
No, the cool thing is about the show. No, it's not bad. I mean, we usually have a dog appearance once a month. We have toddlers that appear. We've had people that have done the show. I've done the show. I've interviewed both mayors from my bathroom. I just thought it was a cool chance to give a pause.
But the dogs politely waited until you were done with what you were saying, and 100%. They were Brad, so they were just chiming in.
My family has very well behaved dogs.
I think that was their way of applauding. You know, I mean, they were clapping for you. They were.
There we go.
Brad.
Brad, I know I asked Maria. I forgot to ask Mike, but do you have a hidden gem that you like in the city?
Oh gosh. Well, I'm a barbecue guy, so Arthur Bryant's and Rosedale Barbecue are my two, and Rosedale's probably the one most people don't know about. But my dad was a teacher at Paseo High School when I was a little kid, and he used to drive me into downtown sometimes with him. We'd go to Rosedale. It's pretty awesome.
Yes. Okay. Should we move on, Scott? Any more questions?
Yeah, because I'm getting ready to show a picture of Ken.
Oh.
Well, there. Oh no, I can see it.
Whoa, move it over.
Ken's on another podcast, so he's doing 2 podcasts in one day. So,
Ken, you're kind of a big deal. You're also the benefits consultant at Hub International, but more importantly, you just did a podcast with Jamie Simpson from Net Standard last week. So you're everywhere. You're omnipresent.
It's been cool to get the opportunity to sit down and have some conversations. So yeah, glad to be here.
And then you got fans that are tuning in, and you'll see it coming up. And Don Carter, the incredible Mr. Ken Bramble, and then also congratulations to Don Carter partnering with Pipeline. That's a huge congrats. That article's been in Startland. So Ken, who are you? What do you do? And how did you get to Kansas City?
Well, I have to return the comment to Don Carter first. I tell people all the time, if you get an opportunity to meet Don Carter and sit down with him, I tell people all the time, he's one of the few people I sit down with for coffee, and he looks into my soul. We've had some really great conversations, and I can't say enough good things about him. So if you get a chance to meet him, we're doing an event together along with a couple others that I'll talk about when I get the opportunity. But he's a good one. So getting to Kansas City, I've told this story a million times, and I've got it down to, I can tell it in 2 hours or I can tell it in 20 seconds. Grew up in Baltimore, Maryland, chased a girl to K-State, and ended up in Kansas City after that. Normally the next question
is that girl your wife that you chased?
That's normally the next question, and the answer is no.
Out of your intro. I love that joke.
Yeah. So the answer is no. Lambda Chi was the demise of that relationship. It ended shortly after I became affiliated with a fraternity in college, as does happen. But no, I came to Kansas City after Kansas State, and my wife and I met at a job. One of my first jobs out of college. We've been married 27 years, and I have two boys that are 22 and 19, and the 22-year-old proposed last Friday night. So
nice.
Lots of good stuff going on.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Now, Ken, you were alluding to an event you're doing on mental health. I don't want to give it away, but I did. But can you kind of talk and educate the audience of why that's important to you? When is it, and what's the goal of the organization? And I know that's something you'll address in another episode, but let's talk about it now to continue to promote it.
Yeah, thank you for the opportunity. I mean, I'll cover first why it's important to me. I've got my own story around anxiety, and 12 years ago, which you'll hear me talk about with Jamie, I walked into a Monday morning a coffee meeting with 200 people in the room. And Ryan Lefevre from the Royals was the speaker that day, and he was talking about his bouts with anxiety. He wrote a book about it. I happened to be in the pits of it when that happened. And so flash forward 12 years later, it's become what I do every day, and pointing out to business leaders and companies and organizations that mental health should be an area to focus on for their employees. And really the stigma had come down before COVID, and then COVID just put a bigger spotlight on it even more. And the stigma around mental health has continued to lower. So what I saw in working with my clients is that there's all these things, especially due to COVID, there's all these solutions and resources that have kind of rushed to market to help people deal with mental health concerns, especially in a business kind of professional environment. But it seems that the business leaders and owners and HR leaders and professionals haven't been necessarily trained on how to leverage those resources to build a strategy around it. And so that was really the impetus of this event that we're putting on, was how do we help people understand how to build a strategy around it? And I have a colleague up in Chicago named Fran Scott that has built something called a strategic frame, basically a framework around how to build a 1 to 3 year strategy to build in mental health to your employee benefits offering and to how you build culture within an organization. So myself and Jen Toro and Melissa Winden and Don Carter and Fran Scott are kind of the program. So the first half of the event will be myself, Don Carter, and Jen Toro kind of talking through our own personal testimony stories, whatever you want to call it, in kind of a panel discussion. And then the second half will be Fran Scott presenting about the strategic frame and how to actually leverage some of these resources and ideas into solutions for people. So that event is called, it's kind of a mouthful, Mental Health as a Business Strategy, Thought Leadership for a Modern Workforce. And the event is going to be on April 4th from 9 to 10:30 at the Johnson County Arts and Heritage Museum, which is at 89th, 88th and Metcalf or so. It's a free event, and you can just look me up on LinkedIn, and there's a link there to go to the event and register. But we're looking forward to having an open conversation with the business community about that topic.
Yeah, Ken, I would love to have added a joke at the end of that, but it's a serious topic. What would the acronym be for the title of the event?
That's a whole other. There's not
Right.
enough
I
constant.
tried to make that a hashtag. It didn't work.
Ken
I
and
don't
I,
think
Ken and I are
no.
friends, so I'm not.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not. I'm trying to add humor, and I know it's not a humorous subject. But Ken, Michael had a question about hidden gems, and you love cars, you love cigars, and you love hidden gems. What is a hidden gem that you enjoy hanging out at that maybe a lot of people may not know about?
Well, it's where I'm sitting right now. So there's a place in Bonner Springs called the Fuel House. And the best way to describe it is a country club for car people. And country club really doesn't apply because it's just a bunch of folks that enjoy cars. And basically somebody was traveling through Bonner Springs one day and ran into an old flour mill on the far west edge of town and looked at it, this old dilapidated building, and said, I bet we could do something cool with that. And so they gutted the inside. There's 4 levels inside. There's a public and a private side. The private side has car storage and garages and a cigar lounge and a regular lounge with a bar and all of that. And then the public side has a barbecue restaurant, an ice cream restaurant, a golf simulator,
Wow.
a coffee shop. And then there's a great outdoor area to hang out. So it's a great place to bring your family and hang out and get coffee or barbecue or ice cream or all of those things. But that's where I am right now.
Maria, put that on your list.
What was the name of it again?
It's called the Fuel House.
The Fuel House. I'm gonna have to check it out for sure.
Yep.
So it's a hidden gem, but also it's not a flour mill. It's the 11 things that Ken shared as well. And Michael, I didn't mean to interrupt you. Go ahead.
Oh, no, I was just going to circle back. Ken, I know that you have been really open and honest and candid about mental health awareness. Have you found that since you've started speaking out about it, it's really resonating with people who need to hear more about it or need to feel
you
like
bet. Absolutely. I mean, that's, Ryan Lefevre, like I said, was kind of one of those ones because when I was going through it, the last thing I was going to do, I didn't tell my best friend at home, my wife, about it for the first 2 or 3 months, right? I was just kind of hiding it and sitting on it. And when he said that and stood in front of that room and talked about it, even then he was selling books that day. And I walked up to his table and there was a line behind me. And I just kind of did one of these and was kind of like, I get it, man. But I didn't want the people behind me even knowing that I was dealing with that at the time. And I've just been fortunate enough that God made me open and transparent. I get praised for that, but it's just kind of who he made me. In fact, there's a bit of a freeing side to it too, just being open and transparent about it and talking about it out loud. I can tell you that when I was dealing with all that weight on my shoulders and I talked about it with my wife for the first time on a Saturday afternoon, the relief that I felt from having that conversation was pretty massive. And so, yes, you're exactly right. People, I'll tell you this, I pretty much have a coffee every single morning with someone, right? And standardly this conversation comes up. And probably 2 different times as I was having this conversation, someone glazed over on me. And I thought, I got to get out of this. They're not feeling it. It's not what they want to hear about. And in both cases, they leaned across the table to me and explained to me that they had the exact same thing happen to them and that this was the first time they said something about it out loud. To the points of I was on a suicide watch or I was in my office completely paralyzed, not knowing what to do or where to turn. So times like those are when you know that it's a good thing to be open with it. And that's the whole idea for me putting this event together. Selfishly, when we started planning it, I said, I have to be able to talk. Like, yes, what Fran is going to talk about is hugely important, but I want to be Ryan Lefevre to others. I want to be the guy that's up front saying it and someone sitting in the audience thinking they're the only ones that they understand that that's the moment that they realize it. So yeah, absolutely.
Like I've always said, you never know who you're going to help and when you're going to help them. So
Yep.
Yes.
Right. So good thing that I'm friends with Ken because I can transition these things. Because like when someone does something heavy like that, you want to, as a host, you want it to slide into the transition. But as Sander
go right ahead,
plays the question of the day by Burns and McDonnell.
Question of the day.
We will have it play, and then when it's over, we will have Maria share.
Hi, my name is Lisa Diven, and I am a mechanical engineer at Burns & McDonnell, and I currently work on proposals for our oil, gas, and chemicals division. And my question today is, what does success look like for your business?
Maria.
So I didn't really talk about BNIM much earlier in my introduction, and just to kind of give a little bit about who we are. So we are a 53-year-old firm that really started here in Kansas City. And I think anybody that knows the AEC industry, the architectural engineering construction industry, really understands that BNIM is a very mission-driven organization. And that we like to do really meaningful work. We're leaders in sustainable design. We're leaders in social justice. We're leaders in climate change. We're leaders in, just doing really kind of meaningful work. And so success for our organization is just to continue to find clients and partners that we can continue to do that meaningful work, both here in Kansas City, in our other offices. We also have offices in San Diego and Des Moines, and then also nationwide and even internationally. And because, our people are our biggest assets, I think what success is having a really engaged, happy team that loves doing what they're doing and can find delight in working with our clients toward the meaningful goals.
Maria, your company is very well known and very iconic. What are some of the projects that you're most proud of? I know you do so many things throughout the country, but what are some things that people may recognize? And then secondly, talk a little bit about how you're able to recruit talent in an area where it's so valuable to recruit that talent.
So some of the recognizable work that you guys would know here in Kansas City, we were involved with a lot of work at the Nelson Atkins Museum of Art, the block building addition, but then all of the major renovations. BNIM's been doing something like 27 projects over the last, 12 years or something like that. And then the Kaufman Center for Performing Arts. BNIM was also involved with that. We also have had a big part in the skyline of downtown Kansas City, having designed a number of office buildings, including One Kansas City Place, which was, at one point in time, the tallest building in Missouri. So there are a lot of recognizable projects in Kansas City that BNIM has designed and created. And then sort of beyond Kansas City, most recently, we completed a project at the Kennedy Center in Washington, D.C., which is called the Reach. And so it is an addition that has performing arts, on the outside of the building and even above the building. And so that's a project that's really recognizable. And then we also have a project in Kampala for the U.S. Department of State for OBO that we have that's under construction. So, our work is really nationwide. We do a lot of higher ed work that you would probably recognize if you went to a lot of higher ed campuses. And I forgot the second part of your question.
Well, feel free to go further on the higher ed, because isn't that your wheelhouse?
Yeah.
And then
Yes.
secondly is higher ed is recruiting talent. I mean, it's so hard in your industry to get the best talent. And I know that's really critical for what you do as one of the leading partners of your firm.
Yeah. So, I mentioned to you that we want to find meaningful work, and we think that doing higher ed work is so aspirational. It is literally, we can design buildings that help teach by the building itself on higher ed campuses. And so we've done work locally here in Kansas City on the UMKC campus, the Metropolitan Community College campus, Johnson County Community College, for example. But then we've done work at Princeton, Georgia Tech, WashU, Marquette University recently, and then a lot on the West Coast for, UC Berkeley, Cal Poly, San Luis Obispo, University of California, San Diego. So a lot of that work we find to be very, very aspirational and meaningful because it touches, our future and is helping them to be better humans. So higher ed work is very important to us, and finding the good talent is incredibly important as well. And one thing that I think a lot of people don't know, and we are trying, there's an organization, one of the organizations I'm involved with is called Kansas City Global Design. And it is now a part of the Kansas City Area Development Council. And its mission is really to, get the word out about sort of this mecca that exists in Kansas City of creating and developing talent for the AEC industry. And so we want to leverage, we've got all the sports architecture firms in Kansas City, for instance. We've got many major engineering firms, right? And Black & Veatch and Burns & Mac, who's sponsoring this, for example. And so we want people to understand that Kansas City is a place to be, that, if you want to come as a young, recent graduate and you have classmates or friends that are maybe in a different industry, they can come here too. Like we can, we can find jobs for them. We have lots of jobs. And I think, one thing that we do is we just leverage each other to say, this is really a great place. And we know that the reality is that, potentially people are going to move from firm to firm. And we have a large pool of firms that they can be at. So, I think that firms like to come to BNIM, for example, because of what we're known for. Design excellence and our leadership in sustainable design. And so that's an attractive factor. And interestingly, we have so many great schools of architecture nearby, KU and K-State having two extremely strong programs, for example, but then we draw from a lot of other nearby schools as well.
And Maria, real quick, I was listening intently to what you were saying, but I super perked up when you mentioned that you had offices in Des Moines, which is my hometown. And also, did you say San Diego?
San Diego, yes.
How did you venture? That seems like that's close by, but then the other one's way on the West Coast. How did those come about?
So our firm growth actually has happened sort of organically. So we follow people to where they are. So in the case of Des Moines, Rod Cruzy, who was a part of a very significant firm in Des Moines, Herbert Lewis Cruzy Blanc, basically came to BNIM and said, I want to be a part of your firm. HLKB no longer exists. And so he came, spent some time in Kansas City to really understand our culture, our story, how we do work, and then was able to take it back to Des Moines and grow a practice there. But he's already well known, already known for design excellence. And so that's how the Des Moines office opened. And the same thing in San Diego, followed a person that, worked in our Kansas City office. We knew that was going to be a strong market for us because of the alignment in our values and the values that many of our clients out there hold as well. And so we have, those are sort of our two big offices. And right now, actually, interestingly, we have someone in Washington, D.C. We're starting an office there because we need to be on the East Coast as well, particularly with the work that we're doing out there. But then we also have people in Philadelphia, Chapel Hill, North Carolina, Oklahoma City, Lincoln, Nebraska. And so we're looking to grow in those markets as well.
Nice. Thank you. Up next, from the question of the day, Mike, go ahead.
I forgot the question at this point.
What does success look like for your organization? And you can talk about your non-for-profit or the business side.
Yeah. Well, success, right now is we are right in the middle of the transition from the first generation to the second generation. And that will be after a 50, 55, 56 year thing. But we could see the third generation within 10 years. So we are really trying to make sure, there's the old saying, the first generation starts it, the second grows it, the third blows it. And we don't want to blow it because mom and dad worked really, really hard to get the thing going. So making that transition, making sure that our employees, we're not a small organization anymore, and we're spread out across the city and 2 states. And so making sure that we've got everybody talking to each other, that we're creating a culture of one team, even though it's 3 different places. So that's what success for me will be. If I can achieve that in the next couple of years, that's going to be big. We've done, I feel like, a great job growing the company. When I started, we worked with 1 school district, which was Blue Springs, where we were. And now we work with 60 school districts across a 100-mile area in 2 states. So it's trying to keep all those balls in the air and then make this transition while my mom and dad are stepping out of the business. And now it's fully on our plate. So it's a scary proposition, but a cool one. On the nonprofit side, success looks like building a team. And honestly, that has been really hard in nonprofit. It's a lot harder in nonprofit than it is in profit, which surprised me. I wasn't prepared for that. But it's just taking the time and working through the people to get the right people on the team that identify with your cause, that have as much of a passion for it as they can, and then see the larger vision. So then the larger vision of the charitable side is that it's a national charity started here in Kansas City. As I said, we've already given instruments and scholarships to 10 different states. We put on a virtual camp where we had kids from 46 states, 5 different countries. And we're actually going to be bringing 2 girls who are trumpet students from Ukraine, who are actually refugees right now, who are going to be, we're going to bring them over here this summer for the music camp at University of Kansas. And so music's the universal language of the world. And so we want to bring that whole world of music together. So I'm super excited. It's gone way bigger than I ever thought that it would,
And Brad, for you, what does success look like?
So not to use that very overused phrase, pivot. SkillPath has had to go through a pretty hard business pivot after the pandemic, or in the middle of the pandemic. As one of the industry leaders in that old public seminar business, SkillPath's been around nearly 40 years now, and our business nearly came to a grinding halt, or really did come to a grinding halt in about April of 2020. Thankfully, there had been a complete executive team change just a few months before that. There were some different minds here that were more open to the use of technology, as an example, and that pivot was made, and that allowed us to head down a different path. I can tell you, success for us is making sure that we still can offer those seminars on a much scaled down version, but seminars in the places where it makes sense, in the numbers where it makes sense, but certainly a greater focus in that more customized enterprise solutions-based approach to, we were talking about at the top of the show, those Fortune-ranked organizations that we do the customized training for, with professional sports teams, federal government, city governments, state governments. But we just recently launched a learning management system, an LMS platform. I know when I first had my first experience with SkillPath was taking a SkillPath seminar back in the mid 90s, early 90s. And after taking that first seminar and then becoming that first stage manager in HR, I wanted to be able to get their content and put it in my LMS, and found out I couldn't do that because SkillPath didn't offer files in that kind of format. And SkillPath didn't have an LMS that I could buy. There are thousands of me just in the United States, let alone in the UK and Canada, other places where this technology works. And when we compare this technology that we've now had out there for a couple months, we've experienced some great sales. And in comparison to the next closest provider, we got better content. We do our own stuff. We don't just take anybody's videos and slap them up on our site. So it's very exciting, and it's really it's really an interesting time, an exciting time to see this take place at SkillPath. So for us, success is seeing that LXP, our learning experience platform, see it launched and really embraced by those customers that we are already serving, and customers that maybe we've served in the past on the public seminar side who didn't know that we have this capability.
Yeah, so go a little bit further in depth of, like, so you have a current client, and instead of relying on the seminars, it allows them to do it at their own pace.
That's that is one thing that allows them to do is utilize our content at their own pace on a subscription basis. Yes.
Very cool.
Very cool. And finally, Mr. Bramble, what does success look like for you?
This gives me an opportunity to brag a little bit about my team and about our organization. So, when we work with clients now, what we hear all day is attraction and retention. How do I find people, and how do I keep the people that I have? And Hub Kansas City, and Hub as an organization globally, but specifically to the organization in Kansas City, has done a really great job of building solid teams and affording people opportunity to understand what their career could look like in our industry. There's a couple of examples of just bringing people into the organization and almost kind of a professional working internship platform where you get to see all the facets and sides of our business, and start to kind of gravitate toward the path that you want to take, and then go down that path. And then specific to the teams that I work with every day with my clients, I was in a peer group meeting recently, and we were talking about a professional concern that I had. And one of the members in the peer group, who, as far as I was concerned, almost didn't even know what I did. I mean, I knew he had a general understanding, but as I was talking, he interrupted me, and he goes, "And you have the best team in the city when it comes to what you do." And so it really took me back, because one, I didn't even really know he knew what I did. And then to get that kind of a compliment about my team that I didn't even know he knew of, but it had a reputation across the city of being the best, really, really took me back. So that painted a really great picture of what success looks like for me and for my organization.
It's awesome.
So it is this time of the show where we try to ask a deep question or an icebreaker. So we're going to go with a deep question. Now, Mr. Mackey, do you want to read?
From my boss, killer panel today! Exclamation point, exclamation point, exclamation point. Hate that I'm missing it.
Yeah, so you always have to divide and conquer. So I'm dyslexic, so I hate reading out loud, or I hate being on a whiteboard and someone's like, "Hey, can you go ahead and write up the notes there?" I'm like, "Oh man, I really, really dislike that." So never going to be the person reading. So that's a fear of mine. I don't know if I want to ask.
Did I know that you were dyslexic? I didn't know that.
You always wonder why I never really do anything for a living other than connect people. I found that if I made people money, or if I helped them have fun, that they would like me and keep me around. And so that was more subjective, and not subjective, but subconscious. I just naturally did it. So Maria, if there was someone in your life that motivated you and said you can't do something, or is there someone that inspired you? So I always ask this question. A lot of times people give the inspiration one, but genuinely, was there someone that at a point in your career that said, "Maria, I don't think you can do this, or you're not made out for it," and motivated you? Or did someone inspire you and say, "You can do this"?
Maria, what got you fired up?
A lot gets me fired up, but I'm gonna go the majority route and say the inspiration route. So Bob Berkebile, the B of BNIM, is notorious for putting you out there as someone who is an expert at something before you think you are. And so I think he had always, made sure to include me in meetings. As I was sort of coming along in the industry, he would say, no, now don't talk to me. You need to talk to Maria. She's the one who really knows this. And I think by doing that, it gave me the confidence that if he believed in me, then I should be able to do this. And so I felt like I could live up to his very, high expectations. So I would say Bob Berkebile.
One thing, for what things would people know Bob for? Because he's been pretty historic in terms of having his fingerprints on things in Kansas City.
Mm-hmm.
Did you say what is he known for?
Yeah, what is he known for? I mean, obviously your firm, but there's some pretty big projects that he was really influential on that have influenced architecture throughout the country.
Yeah, I mean, the most recent that he's probably gotten notoriety for is the KCI Airport, right?
Mm-hmm.
He was a part of the team at Kibbitt and Myers, which is sort of the firm that all other firms have grown out of. There's a Kibbitt and Myers family tree, actually. And Bob was a part of the design team that was instrumental in creating the now defunct KCI Airport, but at the time was, groundbreaking. That would be one project that I think he was really well known for. He likes to tell the story about his role in the Hyatt Regency. The tragedy that happened is really what prompted him to change his way of thinking and become quite zealous about sustainable design. Like, we have to be better. We have to be doing better. We can't have these tragedies happen. And I just want to say, he was not at all at fault. It was a structural engineering issue that caused the collapse. But that would be another project. And then on the more positive side, there are projects like the Anita Gorman Discovery Center that is really about conservation, teaching the public about sustainability and conservation. Those are a few of sort of Bob's projects that I think.
Yeah, Bob came and spoke to a Centurion's leadership group, and Haven Steel, which has nothing to do with the relationship to my company, was a little bit at fault for that, but neither here nor there. Mike, did someone inspire you or did someone motivate you?
Oh gosh, both. Inspired is my mom. She was the strongest woman executive I've ever seen. She would walk right into the bank and say to the guy, why is his money more important than mine? And in a time when she wasn't supposed to be that way. And, but she just always told me, you can do anything, I know you can do it. And Scott, I share kind of the dyslexia / ADD thing, because I was a horrible student, almost flunked out of college, should not be successful on paper at all. But, she just always knew. And then my dad was kind of the same way. He said, when you're ready, you will. They just kept saying that to me. When you're ready, you will. And so I always remembered that. And so when I moved over here to Overland Park and opened the branch, and I was 24 years old running the place, and there was a lot of times when I heard from them, like, you can do this. You can do this. It was scary. I was all by myself. The guy that motivated me, this is a funny story, but it was Dick Hawk from the Gaslight Grill. And I was meeting with him and the people at Fox, and he walked in, and we were going to do our first Band of Angels event. We were going to start trying to raise money, and he wanted to have it at the Gaslight Grill. And I said, well, why don't we charge people? Let's do like a nice thing. And he goes, well, I was thinking it'd be free. And I said, well, that's not really what I was thinking. I was going to do like $100 a person, and we do something really nice. And he goes, yeah, I don't think you can do that. I don't think that's going to work. And I'm sitting there, Kerry from Fox kicking me under the table like, dude, he spends a lot of money on the network. Don't upset him. But I was like, I think I'll show you. And so this year we raised over $100,000. So I think that was, and I've always kept those little things. I think sometimes when you're a student that doesn't excel and then you start trying and you're up against people that look clearly outclass you, you wear those little things on your shoulder as chips and say, you know what, I'll show you. So I'm the most blessed guy on the planet because I had the most supportive family who said, you can do this. There isn't anybody, my dad's always, they put their pants on one leg at a time, just like you. Doesn't matter who they are. And that really motivated me when those people said, you can't do that. I said, no, my mom and dad told me I could, so I'm going to.
So Brad and Ken, we have 2 minutes each. Brad, did someone motivate you or inspire you?
I'm going to say one that motivated me, and I can't for the life of me remember her name, but I kind of snuck in the back door of personnel back in the day. I didn't set out to be an HR guy, but I can remember going to interview for this job. I had been out of football for a few years, and as some college athletes or other levels of athletes find, after you stop spending those 4 hours a day in a weight room, but you keep eating like you're, on the training table, but not spending that time, I quickly ballooned up to, I think my biggest was 525 pounds. And so that's what I was when I went in. And now I'm 6'4", 6'5". I'm not a small guy, but still 520, that's a quarter of a ton. And so I went and interviewed for this HR position over in Topeka, and this hiring manager looked back at me and said, she cut the interview short, and she said, you'll never be an HR person. And I looked back at her and I said, I've been managing the personnel function in this other company of pretty good size in Topeka for 3 years, I think, at that time. Why are you telling me this? And she said, you're too intimidating. People are never going to want to come to you. They're never going to open up to you. You're a man. People are never going to open up to a man. You're a former football player. People are never going to open up to you because you're a football player. So therefore, you're dumb. You're never going to understand employment law and things that are of complex nature, which we have to know in HR. And I walked away from that interview at first completely deflated. But thankfully, so I'll sneak into the inspiration piece. I had two fantastic coaches during my career, Dave Henry at Jackson Heights High School in Kansas, and Jim Michael at St. Mary's. Them and my dad and the good Lord above made me who I am. And they helped, their words helped remind me that I could do it, where this lady was telling me I could. And here
all right, Ken, 1 minute and 15 seconds.
Yeah, I'll make it short. I always go to my dad on this. My dad worked for Bethlehem Steel for 42 years, and I watched him. Well, he started before I was born, kind of pushing a broom, and then ended up running all of the East Coast shipping operations for Bethlehem Steel, which is now that lot is now the headquarters of Under Armour in Maryland. But so that he showed me what hard work looks like, and Mom showed me what faith looks like. So those are the two that made me who I am. And that's where I always go when people say, who was it that, put you where you are?
Well, Michael, I'll have you close out the show since you're impersonating Aaron Fulk, and then you can close everything out. I just want to say thank you to Burns & McDonnell and Bank of Blue Valley for all their constant support, and obviously our panelists. But Michael, you being one of the most well-known media personalities in all of Kansas City, how was the show, and how do you want to close it out?
Well, now you're putting me on the spot. I don't know, because I didn't know I was closing out the show. So I will just say, on behalf of Scott and I, thank you. Aaron will be back next week. So thank you for letting me pitch hit this afternoon, I should say. Yes, swing. And as really super fast, because we only have a little tiny bit of time left. Q1 is ending. What are your goals for Q2, 3, and 4? Quick, Maria.
Growth in California.
Mike.
Keep growing.
Brad.
Wrap up a NetSuite implementation.
Okay, that was quick. And Ken.
Great events. The ones I told you about.
Nice.
Man, that was really quick answering. That was great. Yeah, Michael, feel free to close it out.
Well, everyone, Scott, I've never closed this show, so I'm going to leave it to you. Or
I will
maybe we
close
should
it.
just wave, like,
it's out of
like we're on a
respect.
love boat or something.
You've done this for a while. Well, you're turning 28 because you said your birthday is coming up, but you've done this for a while. So this is out of respect. I was saying the great Michael Mackey, why don't you close the show? But thank you, Burns McDonnell. Thank you, Bank of Blue Valley. We're all going to wave at the screen, and then Sanders going to turn it off. 60 minutes.